welcome to Chapter Select, the book club for video games. As always, I am Jens Dietrich, and with me, my good friend Randy Isbell.
Man, I have to tell you, the games that we have decided to play on this game are giving me culture shock, I think, at this point.
Too much Japan?
Too much Japan. But not too much Japan. I'm having a good time. Both the games we played have been good, and I'm excited to talk about part of this one, but it is definitely a different culture in this game compared to what I'm used to, and it's great.
So, how would you contrast it with Ghost of Tsushima, though, in terms of how it handles Japan?
It has a lot more neon light. No, we'll get to it. We'll get to it as far as the gameplay and stuff goes. There's some similarities I'm coming up with, which I wasn't expecting. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about Judgment today, or at least the first 4 chapters. So if you have not fully played, you don't have to get through the whole thing. It's a long game, longer than we were expecting. So we're going to break this up into 3 parts. So again, this is chapter 1 through 4. And if you're new to Chapter Select, go check out our previous episodes. We have done, as we were just mentioning, Ghost of Tsushima. We took 2 parts to get through that game, and we've also talked about The Last of Us Part 2. So if you played those games and you want to know what we thought about them in a deep dive kind of a review kind of a format, go check those out. Let us know. Our Twitter account is chapter_select. I know right now we basically just kind of post a podcast on there just because I myself am terrible at tweeting things out. I need to get on there more and
I'm bad
tweet
at promotion
on that
myself,
thing.
obviously.
Yeah, I need to tweet more about what I'm playing and stuff on there and get more interactive.
Yeah, we have to do that. I just want the podcast to catch on kind of naturally, organically.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess we need to be a little bit more obnoxious about promoting ourselves.
I'm the worst at it.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I think we're competing for worst at promotion.
Yeah.
But, I blame myself for us having to split Judgment up into 3 chapters. I procrastinated on it for too long. I decided, hey, we're done with Ghost of Tsushima early. I can play through Deadly Premonition 2. I can play through Saints Row the Third Remastered. I can play some Dark Souls. I had all this stuff that I was doing to put off getting back into Judgment, thinking that Judgment was going to be like 2 big 20-hour segments or so for me. But I have now put 20 hours into it, and I'm, at the beginning of Chapter 5 out of, I think, 13?
Yeah, 13 chapters are in this game. I don't know if they get shorter or not. I'm actually in the middle of Chapter 6, which is kind of where we were thinking about stopping, was after Chapter 6. But
yeah, we're going to do 6 chapters and then 7 chapters, kind of break it up that way, because we figured the later chapters are going to be a little bit shorter. But yeah, I think chapters...
Huh?
Yeah, sorry?
I was going to say, Chapter 1 was really long. I think Chapter 5, 5 has been the shortest one, so I don't know if it's going to start waning down, because I think at this point they have thrown so much side crap at you. I shouldn't say crap. Some of it's good. But they throw so much side stuff at you that I think the main story starts to shrink a little bit. And I know that I have been full gung-ho on the main story, because I didn't know if I was going to get through the first 6 chapters myself. So I think the last 2 chapters I've just went gung-ho and went right for. So I'm behind on some of the side stuff.
I have a hard time doing that. I've done a lot of side stuff, as is my custom. But yeah, Yakuza chapters seem to differ wildly in length. That has always been the case. It's kind of unpredictable whether you're going to finish your chapter in an hour or just an hour of watching cutscenes, basically, with maybe a boss fight at the end of it, or if you're going to be doing, a million menial tasks. The chapter 1 in this game is probably the longest chapter 1 that I've ever experienced in a Yakuza. Like, it was 5 hours to do chapter 1 of this game.
And at that point, at that point, they haven't unlocked a lot of stuff. But before we get into that, we always do this. We always want to bring up this segment, and we always forget about it. You kind of talked about the games you were playing.
I did mention them, at least.
You mentioned them, but I want to hear more about these games. What have you thought about Saints Row and going back and playing? You were saying Demon Souls, right? Was the Souls game you were playing?
I grabbed Dark Souls digitally. I have it on disc, and I had not even cracked the disc open. Because, I played Dark Souls back in the day. I'm well familiar with it. It's kind of like the only two Yakuza games I haven't played are Kiwami and Kiwami 2, because they're remakes of games I've already played, and I've got a gigantic backlog of stuff. And remakes of games I already played tend to take a backseat to things which are, entirely new.
Uh-huh.
But the Souls games are kind of a comfort food. And I spend about 5 hours every Sunday morning playing co-op games with a friend of mine in Germany. But about half that time has now just become us talking about what we've been doing and what movies we've been watching and, news. And I've been using Dark Souls as a filler, playing it in the background while we do that when we're not playing a co-op game. The first time I played Dark Souls, I think it took me about 30 hours to be ready to make my way through Blighttown and deal with kind of the first really, that game is super challenging from the start, but it's kind of the first real fuck you area. And this time I did a lot of what I did in 20 or 30 hours. I think the first time I played Dark Souls, I did in 5. So I'm pretty far along in it. I'm reminded of how brilliantly designed a dungeon crawler it is. The world, the dungeon design, how everything interconnects. It's still probably the best one of those purely for level design, other than maybe Demon's Souls. I think Demon's Souls is way up there as well. But yeah, so that's been good. But it's a Souls game, so I don't know how much more there is to say about it, other than it's still great. And then I grabbed Saints Row the Third is my favorite Saints Row game. I played it a whole bunch last generation. I had a friend of mine who wanted to play it co-op, so we did that. Downloaded it really quick. As a way of procrastinating from playing Judgment, I would ask him every night, want to play some Saints Row? Want to play some Saints Row? And we did. And we actually burned through it pretty quickly, despite the fact that that game is a disaster technically. The original Saints Row the Third on 360, or I played the 360 version and the PC version back in the day, and neither of them were anywhere as buggy. It was a little buggy, always, but not to the point that this is. It's insane how much AI just glitches out, how much quests or missions straight up break on you, characters clipping through the world. The entire time, the textures on the co-op character did not come in. So his character was a textureless mess in my game, and my character was a textureless mess in his game.
So it was that remade by a different company?
I do not know who did the port. I think it was a port by a different company.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a disaster. It's a way more unstable port than... we must have lost a couple of hours at least to bugs. So I cannot give it as heartily a recommendation as I would like, even though I still love Saints Row. Saints Row 3 strikes the perfect balance. Saints Row 2 was kind of mean-spirited and already really wacky, but not to the point where... It felt like a very serious main story or dark main story with a lot of wacky side content. And then by the time you get to 4, it's a totally different game where guns and cars don't even matter anymore because you've just got superpowers, and it's much more like Crackdown by way of Saints Row. So I'm not a huge fan of 4, the superhero one. So 3 kind of strikes that perfect balance of still being classic Saints Row, but also having... oh my god, I cannot believe how over the top and insane this gets.
Yeah, I will say Saints Row is a lot like the Yakuza series. It's just a series I just have never played.
It's interesting what your blind spots are.
Right? Yeah, you kind of get into your own little genre and your own little rhythms, and you just miss whole series. And then there's some series that you can't miss, and you play every single time.
Right. Yeah, so...
But that's what happens when... Every time that I watch and only I watch, because I follow PlayStation Access on YouTube, so they're only talking about the PlayStation games that come out every week, and it's 7 games every time. You can't play them all.
Yeah, well, I did get that one game on PS Plus, Fall Guys.
I'm so disappointed that you are disappointed by this game.
I've been playing that. Well, I can't say it's a bad game. I can't say that I just hate it. I'm sorry. I know you love it. I know you wanted to play it a bunch. I played it for one night, and it gave me major flashbacks to forced team building that I used to have to do when I worked at Yeah, I used to work at an advertising agency, and for like a couple days a year, they would do this like series of team building days where you would do like rope pull and giant Jenga and, catch the balls and, obstacle courses and Easter egg hunts and all these kind of competitive team building activities that they made us participate in. And most of the time, I had the Verizon account, so I was actually very busy. That was a busy account, an important account. So I was often able to get out of it by saying like, nope, actually, like I have a deadline to hit. I cannot participate in the team building. But there were a couple of years where I had to do it. And it was misery. I hate that sort of thing. And I booted up Fall Guys, and immediately it was like, run this dumb, platforming physics obstacle course and catch these, collect these eggs and steal these tails from people, have a tail at the end of this round.
The tail games are so rough. And
it's just, I mean, the obstacle courses, the parts where it's like, actually the one I hated the most early on was the one with the slides with there's like these basically platforms that are swaying left and right. And you can really only get on them when the seesaws. You can really only get on them when they're level.
It will make you hate humanity. That level.
And it'll especially make you hate humanity when you get stuck behind one.
Yes.
Because it's too high up for you to get on. And there are a whole bunch of people on the other side of it pushing it down. And you have to make that decision of, do I want to wait for this thing to level back out? Or do I want to backtrack and try and come at it from the other side before it does so? People will screw you over.
Oh, yeah.
In a big way. And I just realized I don't like, and I've never played, what's the other one? Gang Beasts is kind of similar.
Yes.
In art style and having that kind of physics thing where you're like grabbing people and throwing them around and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've realized I just do not like physics platforming. It's the same reason I never liked Little Big Planet, is because I never liked the floaty physics of it. And I don't like kind of getting stuck in the environment and tumbling and ragdolling around. It's very frustrating to me. So I absolutely loathed this. I think if there was ever something that was not for me,
and that's so disappointing.
Making me play a baseball game or something. Or
that's what I play too. So Jens and I just can't play games together. I'm learning because he's not into the games I'm into. And honestly, like I can understand your complaints. And all of the games that you were saying were really frustrating you are the ones that frustrate us in the fun way. I just think that we just get used to just yelling and going off on stuff. But usually we'll get a group of 3 or 4 of us every Thursday or Friday is usually the times I'll play with people. And then Haley and I will play some of the other nights together. She'll get on the other PlayStation and we'll both play.
Oh, cool. So you've been playing this a lot. Tell me about your experience.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a pro. Like those guys. So basically they have the like a battle pass thing where you level up, and every time you level up, you unlock a new skin or new color or things like that. And it maxes out at 40 for every season, which seems to be every 2 months or so. And I'm very close to maxing out. I'm level 37, so I'm really, really close. But I know people have maxed out level 40 days and days ago because they just play it nonstop. But I'm pretty good at the game. There's a trophy in there. It's the only trophy that has me worried that I won't ever platinum this game, and it's to win 5 episodes in a row.
Yeah, that seems crazy. I didn't win one in the time I played. I think I unlocked, there are maybe about a dozen trophies that are really low-hanging fruit trophies. So I played it just long enough to get everything that was easily gettable.
Right.
Are you close?
I have won 4 in a row twice.
Wow. Okay.
And I choked the last one, so I'm been close. I think the only trophies I have left in that game is that one as qualified in 500 different rounds, which they haven't added stats yet. They've been talking about it, so I don't know exactly how close I am to it. And I think there's one more that I don't have. That's one of those. Oh, and it hit level 40 in a season, which I'll get pretty soon. So, but like I said, the only one I'm worried about is winning 5 in a row, because like I said, especially those team games, it sometimes is a crapshoot because you just don't know who you're with. It helps when we play Thursday or Friday and there's 4 of us playing, and if we somehow can all 4 qualify and for one of the team games, we know we're usually about at least half of the team. So if we screw up, it's because of us, and that's always fun. But it's been a blast. A buddy of mine has just had the worst luck and had not won a game. He like I said, he played every Thursday and Friday with me, and every so often here and there. I think he's level 22 or 23 right now. Got his first win the other night, and I thought he was going to cry. He was so excited. But I think, honestly, with that kind of game, if I wasn't... I've definitely learned that if I'm not playing with the group, it's not as fun. So I've kind of tampered off of playing when no one else is around. It's definitely going to be the kind of that group game that you play. I know everyone has those like Dead by Daylight games and PUBGs and Fortnites and Friday the 13th. I think Fall Guys is mine for that because I'm a platformer. I do get your criticism with the weird physics that go along with it, but I just find that really fun. I'm really excited to see where they go with this game because obviously it has exploded, like way more than even they ever expected.
Yeah.
I mean, not even just because it was a PlayStation Plus game. Like, it's dominating Steam. It's dominating Twitch. Like, it has just taken over everything. And I'm excited to see what they do because every time I've seen videos and stuff, they've talked about not only adding new games along the way, which they've added one since release, but tweaking current games. And I'm excited to kind of see how they change things up. And the game to me is just a lot of fun. Again, I get exactly why you don't get into it, and I won't bug you about playing with us, but I mean, because everyone has their thing. But that game's been really fun. And the only other game I've really been playing, because I just started college and was doing all of the mental prep for that. Are
you playing Battletoads? Is that out?
I was playing Battletoads for the Xbox. I just got to Act 2, which I don't know how, I'm probably about halfway through, maybe a third of the way through that game. It is really good, but I think I'm still a little disappointed. I think I hyped it up too much in my head. What's disappointing? So I think the enemies are too spongy for my take. So they do a really good job, and their difficulty is it doesn't change too much, but there's 3 different kinds of enemies that obviously will look different on different stages. But one is kind of a shield guy, one's a projectile, one's your normal cannon fodder, this kind of stuff. And they do a really good job for the difficulty of combining these things where you're having to hit this button to interact with this guy, but this guy is coming up behind and you have to hit a different button to break his shield. And it's a lot of button memorization for which works with that. It doesn't work great with, the left trigger basically controls your tongue. And it can do different things, whether you're spitting gum at somebody to basically stun them for a second, or if you're collecting items. It seems like I have to hold that button for a second before I hit the other input for it to ever register. And when you have so much stuff on the screen sometimes, and you're trying to go really quick, it just seems like nothing is inputting right, but maybe it's just me sucking at the game. But I had just gotten through a section the other night so you have these guys that will throw projectiles at you. So you're trying to gum them up long enough for you so you could attack these guys that will drop something and it'll electrocute the floor. I said a lot of bad words for about 30 minutes while trying to get through that.
Well, that's the Battletoad experience, though, right? Yes,
absolutely. Battletoads was always hard, and I think the speed bike section that I played was great. The mini games that get thrown on there are just goofy ass fun. Again, I think this game would be more fun if I played it with Haley and somebody, because you can play up to 3 players. I've just played it with myself right now. I've seen a lot of people.
Is there online co-op, or is it just local?
I think there's online co-op, but I haven't looked.
And if you really want to play it together, which, by the way, I just realized I don't think we've exchanged. I don't think we're friends on Xbox, but just friends on PlayStation. So we need to fix
we'll have to get that. I just don't play the Xbox very much. I joked with Haley that when I turned on the Xbox to download Battletoads, it made a noise at me. It kind of groaned. It was like, oh, what is this? But yeah,
I love my One X.
We'll have to give it a shot.
The One X is an amazing system.
I know a lot of people complained about the graphics, the art style of this game. I love it. Like, does it look like the NES game? No, of course not. It looks like a Saturday morning cartoon to me. And the cutscenes remind me of a Saturday morning cartoon with a little bit of an Battletoads edge to them. I think I love the...
That sounds good. I like that aesthetic.
Right. I love the self-deprecating humor they have in the storyline. Which, I mean, if you play it, you'll see a bit basically of why they've been gone for 26 years and nobody's heard of them. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're heroes. And they're like, yeah, no, you're not. We don't even know who you are. So I like that kind of stuff. I'm excited I just got to a twist in the game that kind of changes things up. So we will see how that goes. I mean, yeah, it's fun.
If you do want to co-op it, we could, if there is online co-op, we could try that.
Yeah, I have to definitely check that out. But yeah, it's on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, I re-downloaded Game Pass just for that. So,
man, I guess I'll just have Game Pass by default next generation when it's just going to replace Gold, right?
I don't know what they're going to do. Because we're still waiting. We're at the end of August. I know there's a big press conference. Well, I guess today when this comes out, but not for Xbox or PlayStation, but we still don't know a lot of details yet.
Man, Game Pass seems like an amazing deal for anybody who does not have a huge backlog of games already.
I'm a PlayStation boy through and through, but PlayStation Now is better than people give it credit for, and it's cheaper. You don't get first-party games day one, which I give Xbox full credit for. That is an amazing idea. But there's a lot of amazing games that you can download. PlayStation Now used to be all streaming.
It's mostly streaming, yeah.
And there's still a lot that are on there that are streaming only, but most of any game they add now...
PlayStation 3 games are streaming only, I believe.
Any game that adds now, you can just download to your system and play it while it's active and you have your PlayStation Now account. But I did that for the year. I paid $60 to have it for the whole year.
That's cool. I was very suspicious of streaming.
Like if you're playing like an older RPG, like a turn-based thing.
If it's a JRPG, who cares, right?
Yeah,
turn-based, who cares?
Let's get into this, and I'll just go right out of the way. I've never played a Yakuza game. Jens talked me into this, saying it's a good intro into it. I think I agree with him. I'm getting into the world. But Jens, what is your history with the Yakuza series?
So I played the original Yakuza when it came out on PlayStation 2. Played the second one when it came out. That was a hard game to find at the time because I guess it got a fairly limited release. And played. I've just been playing the series pretty much from the start. Fell in love with the characters, with Kazuma, and his quest to protect Haruka from the bad parts of the mob, from people who are scheming, who are trying to get at kind of this money that she supposedly has some clue to how to find. I don't really want to spoil the story of Yakuza as a whole, especially since this game does not really connect with it all that much. So far, all that you really need to know is that the Toho clan is Kazuma Kiryu's clan, who is the hero of the previous 7 games, 6 plus the prequel. And while they are organized crime, while they are definitely mafia, they are still, at least whenever Kaz is in charge, the Toho clan kind of becomes a force for good. It kind of becomes the good mafia clan that keeps the bad mafia clans in check and behaves in a somewhat honorable, somewhat ethical way, at least as ethical as I guess you can be, operating on the other side of the law. So that becomes very much the, if you've ever seen movies like Brutal Tales of Chivalry, there is a whole genre of kind of the honorable Yakuza kind of movies where like he is a criminal, but he's got a code and he will protect the innocent from being dragged into kind of these criminal entanglements, being exploited and all that. So he was always you always get these do-gooder characters in Yakuza. I don't think there is a single protagonist. Even Majima, who throughout most of the series is just a wild and crazy guy who wants to fight you, who has a brotherly love for Kiryu, but also a huge competitive streak and is kind of insane. And his way of expressing, his affection for Kiryu is to fight him and challenge him to fights all the time. And he's just kind of this insane guy that pops up in the story sometimes and sometimes randomly and fights you. Well, when they made him the hero, all of a sudden he's not crazy. He is, a reasonable person with a romance story and a big arc about being unjustly kicked out of the Yakuza, which is something that happens a lot. There are a lot of people who are unjustly kicked out of the family and then either are working to get back into the family or to take revenge or, whatever, survive in a situation where they are under constant pressure.
Yeah, you see that in this game a little bit.
You do. This is, let me tell you, this is a good introduction to Yakuza, I think, for any newcomer because A, it requires very little prior knowledge of the previous games, and B, this is a Yakuza-ass Yakuza game. Like, it's got all the tropes. And it dials them up to 11, even. The one thing, I will say this, it's not my favorite in the series by a long shot. In fact, it may be one of the lesser ones to me. And it's not because I miss Kaz, even though I do, of course, miss Kaz. He's the heart and soul of the series. Though, actually, the new protagonist is great. Mm-hmm. I really like the main character in this. But the thing that kind of bugs me is because this purports to be more of a detective game and less of an action game, there is still action. It still has the Yakuza battle system. You still get into random fistfights with people on the street. You're still grinding, to get money and XP and unlock abilities and do all the things that you've always done in Yakuza. But the stuff that used to be relegated to like an occasional, change of pace, like here's a little gimmicky mini game for a little bit to, take you out of the humdrum, going around beating up dudes. That is the core gameplay. Has become much more important and much more prominent in this game. I have tailed like 24 people in Judgment, and it is boring.
Yes.
Oh my god!
Is that what a lot of the side missions are? Is the trailing and stuff? Because I've probably done a dozen, but I haven't done all the side stuff.
There's a lot of it, and it's not what I really want from the game.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that as far as kind of activities go, that drone racing is kind of in the upper echelon of Yakuza side games. Like previous games.
Yeah, the funny thing is I've barely touched it. I've goofed around in the arcades more than I should. Mm-hmm. I've done the home run, the baseball place more than I should because that's a simple little mini game. I'm still really, really disappointed that the place that was not able to unlock till chapter 3 and got my hopes up because on the side of the building is a bunch of bowling pins. It wasn't a bowling alley game. So, but I like the mini game there. I need to play more of that too. But I've played much old school arcade that it's.
Yeah. If you want to bowl, you need to play Deadly Premonition 2.
Is bowling in Deadly Premonition 2?
There is bowling in Deadly Premonition 2. Yes. But this also has Yakuza. Also, darts are back. There's a lot of new arcade games. A lot of new and old favorites return. I think I've played every arcade game up until the point where you get the bonus. You can waste a lot of time on that.
Yes. I learned that really quick. It's like, man, I better get going. I'm not going to get through any of these chapters if I play any of this.
From what you were texting me, it sounded almost like you were enjoying the side stuff more than the main gameplay.
So here's the thing. As far as gameplay goes, absolutely. I like the arcades and the weird little mini games. I wish there were more. I mean, because really, once you get past the arcade and the batting cage, like every other store is food, which you said is a big Yakuza thing, and it's fine. But I do find it funny that everything you do in this game it gets you SP. Oh, you talk to this guy. Here's 80 SP. Okay, follow him for one room. Here's 70 more SP. You ate those noodles. Here's 20 SP. Oh, you did the story. You did the story mission. No SP for you. You get nothing on this one. So yeah, it really does push you to do all the side stuff, and I love it. I need to be better with my points as I've focused more on the detective stuff than the fighting. So the fighting is getting a little bit too repetitious for my take. We're to the point now where two clans or two gangs hate you at the same time,
Yep.
And I've had it where I triggered them at the same time. Like literally one group pointed at me, and as I turned to look at them, a group behind them triggered too, and all of a sudden I'm facing 12 guys. I was like, what is going on? And it's also got to the point where
you can wear an item. There are items that you can wear.
Would that make it go away?
That will make that go away.
Or make them less. Okay.
Yeah. So that has always been. This is a thing you need to know in Yakuza: is that there are a variety of different items that you get either through side quests or by purchasing them in specialty stores that will have effects like mobs just ignore you.
Yeah, that's what I need. I've gotten the side effect stuff that has made me stronger and that kind of stuff. But I definitely noticed, especially when I was trying to push through and get through Chapter 6 for our original plan, that it's like, okay, I need... And that's the other thing with the main story. It's like 3 locations that you just run back and forth from. You go from your office to the law office to the arcade.
So far, yeah.
And it's just
not a huge map.
It's very small, and I like that it's very small, because obviously your only traversals on your feet. I mean, they have taxis on the edge of the maps, but I have only ever used those when the story tells you you're going out of the area and you have to use them. But I've definitely noticed I'll be at my office and I have to go to the law office, and it's like, oh, I'm going to have 4 battles on the way, because it's just everyone hates me, which is great, because I stop every time I get into a fight. I have to turn around and go to a restaurant so I can go get some more XP on it.
Here's the thing, though, right? Until you unlock the bottomless stomach, which I now did, I actually prioritized spending money on the bottomless stomach before I did a lot of the upgrades that would make the game easier to play, health upgrades and stuff like that, because I want to be able to just go in a restaurant and eat the whole restaurant. Because you want to check off all those. It's one of those checklist things. You want to 100% all those restaurants. So you spend much of the early game. I welcome the random fights. I know they get tiresome for people. They get tiresome for me too. But I do kind of like just running around the world of Yakuza, doing the side quests, and getting into random fights while I'm listening to a podcast, because every random fight gets you 27 SP. And they'll drop 5,000 money, and they are very quick. You can do them in like 30 seconds. I can wipe a trash mob in this game really fast. And over the course of the series, it used to be it'd frustrate you much more going back to original Yakuza, because the original Yakuza would go into a load screen every time you had an encounter.
Oh, that would drive me nuts.
Because it had to load in. It would treat kind of the area in which the fight happens as a separate instance that it has to load in separate from the open world. Nowadays, in modern Yakuza, there's very little load time. You beat dudes up for 30 seconds, you get a bunch of money and XP out of it, and then you're out of it again. And if you've taken a little bit of damage, that then gives you an excuse to go to a restaurant and, check a food item off your list, checklist of all the food items that you have to eat. So, I spend a lot of time in Yakuza just doing, dawdling around, doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And I think I need to do more of that with, like, listening to the podcast and stuff, because that worked great with Ghost. When I was trying to grind out some stuff and get the platinum, it was, all right, I'm not going to do any story missions today. I'm just going to do all the side stuff, put on a podcast, and go. I need to do that with Yakuza and get some of that stuff out, because, again, especially this last week, because we were trying to push ourselves harder than we were expecting with our first go-through. But now that I basically have half of what we need to get done for the next episode in 2 weeks, I can take my time and really get into it.
I continue to have the press to follow the adventures of Takayuki Yagami, food critic and occasional detective.
Right, the side quest. So, we'll hit on this before we get into the story, which I will say, Ghost of Tsushima, the story was fine, the ending was great, but the story was just kind of there, and the gameplay kind of carried it along. Yes, it got a little old because you do the same thing so much. To me, is the story really carries this game, where, yes, the gameplay feels repetitive to me already, and I'm not really having the most fun with it, but the story has me so hooked that even though I feel like the gameplay is repetitive and I don't really want to do these fights over and over, I still find myself, when we're not getting together to play Fall Guys, going, I want to play Judgment. I want to know where this goes. But there's 50 friends you can meet, and you do little side things for them. I want to say 46 out of those 50 are food critic people, or people that own restaurants that want to check out stuff. And it's just like, I've done a few. I know you've done more because you have the trophy for it, and I haven't got there yet. But I had to do a smile mini game for the Smile Burger place. There's some interesting stuff. Or my favorite one that I've done is going to the coffee place, and they're like, okay, drink this coffee and tell me what it is. I'm like, well, I can't taste it. What do you want from me? I mean, I figured it out, but it was like just trying to do sensations that you cannot experience in a video game.
I mean, the coffee tasting game is pretty simple because you just have to look in the dialogue for what, because he will have an internal monologue where he will say, well, it's bitter, it's acidic, it's bold, and then they give you a little sheet where you can look at, like, okay, which coffee falls on the X and Y axis of bitter, acidic, and bold. Oh, it's the Sumatran whatever. And I really love all the food snobbery content. I made a concerted effort for a while that I wanted to just, I want to max out all the friendships, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to do all of them because there's some that are connected to really difficult minigames. Or where I actually don't know exactly what I need to do even. So I may consult a guide for that at some point. I kind of, on my initial run through Yakuza, I just kind of try and do everything that I find and can do. And I usually end up at about 50% completion. Like, these games are huge. And I don't think I've ever 100% completed any one of them because there's always at least one of the side activities that is basically impossible for me. One of the other Yakuzas, I think Yakuza 0 had a bowling mini game. And I was bad at that. There's always something that kind of prevents me from platinuming these anyway, so I really don't bother. I think the closest I came to 100%ing one of them was Fist of the North Star, where I've got 80% completion. So, but I made a concerted effort to say I'll try and, build my reputation and my social status up as much as possible. And I just kind of hit all the restaurateurs and started eating all the food and doing all their little taste tests and side quests where you have to give them recommendations. At some point, there's 2 different fast food joints that are struggling, and you can recommend them that they should team up for a special dish. And there's oh man, I would love this when on keto, because I do sometimes do keto when I have to weight cut. There is an all meat, just a specialty steak restaurant, which is amazing. And they basically administer to you a steak quiz in order to get the special item off the menu. Some thug shows up and accosts the owner to try and force him to let him have the dish. So he's trying to now get the special dish by force, and you have to bounce him. And man, there's just so much. As I said, just hours and hours of this game are just, I'm Anthony Bourdain.
I will say I'm
critiquing people's
right. Yeah, there's another friend that I have that I actually really enjoyed their storyline. It was nothing to it. It was just go there and talk to him. But it was the old man who ended up he was the president of the restaurant, and he would just show up as a chef just to kind of see how things were. He was near the north part of the map. I don't know if you've done that one. Mm-hmm. Or not, but just his insight on things was that's a cool old dude. I want to be his friend anyways. There was nothing to the side missions. It was just really cool to hear his insight on stuff. Yeah, there are a lot of the cultural stuff, the stuff that is about, and especially the food culture. Mm-hmm. But, there's also just a lot of stuff in these games that are just about Japanese entertainment culture and what people do in their free times and weird hobbies. And all that stuff's always fascinating to me to see. And I love the restaurateurs. There's one guy, I don't know, did you do the sushi restaurant where you have to basically, there's a guy who's a sushi chef who is from outside of Japan, so he doesn't know the lingo. And you have to help him with the sushi lingo. The last time I played, I just met him. I haven't done any of his side stuff, but I remember that guy. Yeah, he's really nice. I mean, there's a lot of great, and his relationship with his boss is really funny because there's a lot of good-natured ribbing between them.
The side quests in these games are always great. They're very wacky. There's people with weird interests, and I think Kiryu more so than our new hero used to always be kind of like the cultural anthropologist who's fascinated by all of it. He's just like, foot fetishes. I had never thought about this. I should investigate. Let's see where this goes. Used to always be the thing with Kiryu, where they made it in. This is one of the things I love most about Kiryu as a character, and it's kind of a trope of all the Yakuza protagonists. Is Kiryu is just this wide-eyed innocent who is very wholesome, and so you can put him into a lot of situations that are, like lascivious or scandalous or kind of risque, and he will just be this good-natured dolt in the middle of it who is just like, oh, that's interesting.
All right, so we've hit all the crazy side stuff. Let's hit the main story.
What's your favorite side quest that you've done so far?
Like I said, I haven't done a lot as far as like the big storyline side quests. I'm in the middle of the music one.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I've done very few of the side quests. I've done some of the friend stuff. Again, I was pushing myself through. I will come back on the next episode in 2 weeks, and we'll have a lot more side story stuff, because that's what I'm going to focus on now that I know I only have to get through 2 more chapters.
I will say one thing for side stories in this over previous Yakuza games is in previous Yakuza games, a big part of the game was discovering the side stuff, because a lot of it was just stuff that you run across in the world until you start them, at least. And then it starts giving you markers.
Uh-huh.
But you have to really find them in the world. Whereas what this game does is most of the big, bulky side quests come into you as cases through your detective agency. So you just go into your office, you've got a bulletin board there, and then also when you go to the bar, there's like a bar from which you operate, basically, where you also interview a lot of people, where you have a lot of your catch-ups with the police and the police masquerading as gangsters, the inside cop. The undercover cop, I should say. I could not think of those words. Anyway, your base operations also, you can kind of talk to the barkeep, and he will give you, here are your assignments, your cases, and they all pay pretty well. They pay between 50,000 and 100,000 yen. They are super worth doing, and that's kind of been a lot of my time is doing the big side cases. But you do still occasionally find side quests in the world. They're more sparse because kind of the bulk of it is through the detective agency, which I like. I think that's a big improvement. Just giving you, here's a list of quests that you can do is, I think, really good. But I think my favorite one that I want to talk to you about,
okay,
and I don't know, maybe I should save it for next time once you've done
save it. We're about an hour in. And,
okay,
and we haven't even got to the story yet.
I want to talk about Sana-chan. Do you not want to talk about Sana-chan? Have you met Sana-chan?
No, like I said, we'll do that in 2 weeks when I've done it.
She's a singer-songwriter in the theater district.
Yeah, so I've done part of it. I've yet to meet the agent.
Okay.
She had met, the last thing I did on that one, she met the agent, and I was supposed to go check out the agent.
Okay, I will just say this: Sana-chan is the top waifu of this game so far. I think she will be the top waifu of this game when I'm done with it. So, all right, main case. Let's talk about our hero. You are Takayumi Yagami. You are basically a defense lawyer a former defense lawyer now working as a private eye. So you're what if Perry Mason had a really bad case and then decided to become Paul Drake, essentially.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because, I mean, well, from where I'm at, you haven't got there yet, but it becomes more of a factor. So basically the beginning of this game...
I figured. Everybody's backstory eventually ends up tying into the main story.
So the whole beginning of this game, they show an old case that he was a part of where there was a murder at the Advanced Drug Development Center, and you defend this guy named Waku, who everyone says did it, and you get him acquitted, and they're like, oh my god, you're like the best lawyer ever, you acquitted a sure murderer, just for him to come out of jail and murder his girlfriend, and then light the whole apartment on fire, which of course makes you very guilt-ridden, and you stop being a lawyer and you become a PI, and now you're really out to go after the bad guys, and you feel very guilty about that.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the implication being that Yagami actually was taken in himself, that Yagami believed the person he was defending was innocent and would not have defended him if he had known, is at least what I get from it. And that's kind of the way that you act later on, because, a big part of the story later on is that you get a guy free who's a murderer, even though he is connected to the case, even though he is at least partially responsible. He's not responsible in the way that he is being accused of. He has an alibi for the murder, so he has merely ordered the murder, potentially, but not committed it himself. So on that basis, you get him out so you can then investigate him more. So that's the kind of nuanced character that Yagami is, and you understand that, well, he's kind of like a Phoenix Wright, I think, in that he wants to actually, or a Perry Mason, where he wants to believe, he actually wants to work for people who are innocent. He wants to get innocent people off. That is why he became a lawyer.
I just have to step in real quick, because I believe it is chapter 5.
Yes.
That Phoenix Wright. Is it 4 or 5?
They make a Phoenix Wright reference.
They make a lot. They have a whole case in the lawyer's office. I think it's chapter 4. Actually,
the case of the missing cake.
Yes, I think that is in chapter 4, so we can talk about it.
It's the end of chapter 4. We'll get to it. It's kind of fun that chapter 4 just ends on this totally whimsical non sequitur.
It's great. I love it.
Yes. Well, before a big,
before the big, we won't talk about that
twist. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, he's that kind of lawyer. So when that goes horribly wrong for him, he decides that he's a terrible lawyer. He made a terrible mistake getting this guy off. Everybody blames him for it or loves him for it, but he hates it. Because it's exactly that thing like, you're a genius lawyer. You got that guilty person off. And he does not like that at all. So he's now working as a private eye for his former law office, the Genda law office. And you get kind of this big case that you're supposed to assist on to investigate, this serial killing case, where there are 3 victims. They all belong to a clan called the Kiori clan, which is the smallish clan, about 1,000 members or so, that is in an ongoing turf war with the Tojo clan, which is the major clan from the Yakuza series, the good clan, in quotation marks, from the Yakuza series. But kind of the main thing to know for series regulars is this is post Yakuza 6, so Kiryu is no longer really a factor. He's long retired, he doesn't run, and he also does not involve himself in the affairs of the Tojo clan anymore. He's in hiding under a new identity. He's a non-entity to the Tojo clan. So we can kind of see how with characters like, who's the Tojo clan head, the figurehead, whose position has basically been usurped by Hamura.
Oh God, the older guy.
Yes.
Crap. Hold on. I have this page up, and let's see if I can find it.
I'm trying to think here. Matsugane?
Is Matsugane? Yeah, Matsugane.
Yes. Okay, so Matsugane, who I think may be a recurring character from previously in the series. I think he has appeared in previous Yakuza games, but if that's not correct, then there's just been, characters who are similar to him. And to be fair, there have been a lot of freaking characters over the course of the series, so do forgive me if I make any mistakes talking about this stuff. But yeah, he's an old-timer head of the family who, in flashbacks, we can see really that this is kind of the honorable version of the Tojo clan.
Yes.
They don't cut, what's his name's finger off.
Kaijo.
Kaijo's finger. They spare Kaijo. Kaijo can just leave the clan. Like, all of these are fairly rare things in the world of Yakuza. You can tell that they're operating on kind of and Hamura is already pushing in another direction. And this also is a big trope in the Yakuza series overall, is that there's usually some corrupting influence within the Tojo clan. There's somebody who is trying to take over the Tojo clan or corrupt the Tojo clan or consolidate power and kind of push the Tojo clan in a more ruthless, less honorable direction. And that is the thing that Kaz has always opposed. That is kind of, a main arc throughout. And once again, it is happening here with Hamura as kind of the bad influence, the evil force. So there are these serial killings of these Kaori clan members, 3 victims. They were all kind of clan lieutenants of various ranks. They've all had their eyes gouged out. Hamura is the main suspect. Hamura is a major lieutenant in the Tojo clan, Kohei Hamura. Actually, he's a clan captain, I should say. I'm glad that you noted that in your notes. So he's a major clan captain, but really he is so influential and so powerful that he has already kind of taken over the family of which he is a clan captain. Matsugane,
he's basically a figurehead now. He's the leader to the outside world.
We see him in flashbacks as a force for good, as somebody who does right by you, who is a friend to Yagami, who is a friend to Yagami's best friend. He's already Kaito?
Yes.
Yes. God, why am I so bad with that name? And I love Kaito. Kaito reminds me of Jet from Cowboy Bebop in kind of his look and general demeanor.
Oh, it's okay. I was just looking at something else. Just before we get angry things, at the beginning, I screwed up the beginning. Waku is the guy that dies in the beginning. You are the one defending Okubo. So I suck with the names too. I had them mixed up in my head. So before anyone yells, you do not defend Waku. Waku is the old man that dies. I was just looking back at another note and went, oops, got that wrong.
I will full disclosure. I am looking at the case file in the game. If I sound different than I usually sound on the podcast, it's because I'm downstairs in my living room because I figured I need to have this case file open.
There's a lot, especially that first chapter. There's so much they throw at you. So basically, every time you meet a new character, they throw that character title screen up that shows their full name.
Has become a great meme online. I'm sure you've seen those. Have you seen the one of Ben Affleck?
No, I need to look these up now.
Ben Affleck has a huge like Yakuza-like tattoo of a fish on his back. So there was a picture of him at the beach, like taking off his shirt and revealing his giant tattoo, which looks like the tattoo from the Yakuza games. And of course, they did in that font. They did, Ben Affleck, Toho Clan Lieutenant.
But so I will say it's nice that they do that just to try to get it to ingrain in your head. Because a lot of times I go, oh, hey, it's that person. And they don't even say their name, so it'll just pop up. But they put their full name out there. And I'm never they throw out so many names, I'm not going to remember them all, especially because they only say, like, you don't know Yagami's first name, because he just says Yagami the whole time. So you see full names on this, it gets confusing.
One thing that's helpful, though, is that you do get a lot of reiteration. Like, you go over the same plot points in the investigation with different people over and over again. So the thing that usually drives me crazy in both Japanese anime and in Japanese video games is this very circular dialogues where it's kind of hitting the same topics over and over and over again, and you're just like, yes, I get it. Kojima does that. A lot of RPGs do that, where they will talk about friendship endlessly or whatever. I mean, anime has whole like arcs that are that sort of thing. So it usually drives me crazy when you have a lot of repetitious information or a lot of repetitious dialogue, but in something like this, where it is a very complicated murder mystery, it actually helps me because you reiterate, these are the 3 victims. Here's how these clans are connected. Here's how this money was stolen. Like, these things are, like, each one of these plot points, you hear it like 3 or 4 times. So that's something. And it seems like,
and they do a good job at the beginning of each chapter, kind of doing a quick recap.
I love the recaps. The recaps are really good.
But I make sure every time I finish a chapter now that's my stopping point. Because now I know once I go back into it the next day that the game is going to remind me of everything that I just forgot that I just did.
I was tempted. I was thinking I could just record the 4 different chapter recaps, stitch them together, and play them on air, and there's our plot summary.
Right.
Because it really does a good job of summarizing. Here is exactly what you needed to know from the previous chapter.
It would cut down our episode time, I think.
It certainly would. Yeah. So you've got these 3 victims, and you've got Hamura basically is accused of killing the latest victim. He was nearby at some sauna, and he left just before the time of death. And there is some security camera footage that has mysteriously disappeared around the garbage dump where the body was discovered, behind Club Amour, which is kind of one of the regular locations. Which, by the way, all the locations and stuff, and in fact, the guy who runs Club Amour is a recurring character from the Yakuza series. He's a major friend of Kiryu that helps you in at least one chapter per game to deal with something. And you interview him here about, what he saw and what he knows and stuff. But basically, the way the chapters are structured is there are kind of 4 discrete but connected cases that build on each other. And the first case is all about you're trying to establish an alibi for Hamura. And, you're talking to witnesses and you're looking at security footage and you fly your drone around to spy on people and overhear conversations or scope out offices. You put on disguises to kind of sneak your way into an office to then confront and interview somebody. You do all this investigative stuff. As I said, way more of the kind of stealth and tailing and investigative minigames than ever before in a Yakuza game. I don't think the side content is very good. It feels very prescriptive. Oh, there's also kind of like picture hunting, the typical find all the evidence in a room, look around this room, identify all the evidence.
I honestly think that they added those in there to make me lose my mind trying to find a stupid cat.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I know I missed a cat early on before I realized that there were cats to find in each one of those. So I've already screwed up the trophy.
I don't know. Well, honestly, it's not even for the trophy. It's because they just won't shut up. So well, before I look for anything else, I look for the cat. I don't know if I missed one early on with the same with you where I didn't realize that was such a thing. But now every time you get into one of those, you just hear a meow over and over and over.
I don't bother because I know I missed one and the trophy is forgetting all the cats. And I would have to start the game over to get that trophy. I'm not going to get anywhere close to the platinum on this game.
Oh, no, me either. Once I got on there and saw that one of the trophies was beat it on the hardest difficulty, I'm like, well, I'm not playing on the hardest difficulty, and I don't see me playing this twice, so I don't care. Yeah, which is okay. Well, it actually takes the pressure off of trying to collect everything because there's so much anyway. So I'm just enjoying the game.
My thing with Yakuza is I want to do the main story and I want to do all the side story stuff. And then other things is just whatever, if there's like low-hanging fruit trophies, I'll try and get those. But yeah, I have like 40 to 50% completion on most Yakuza games. So that's probably where I'm going to land with this. But yeah, I'm not finding all the cats. Screw the cats. But yes, I'm not a fan of those segments. I find them pretty frustrating. I think it's sometimes obtuse what the game wants from you. And the worst thing in any Yakuza is like the parts where they ask you to find something that they don't mark on the map for you. And you have to like, okay, wait, alright, it's somewhere between Tekihachi Street and Tenkaichi Street. And okay, so it's between this stretch.
So like the bomb guy in this game.
Oh my god. Okay, so the bomb guy is very obtuse with what he wants from you. But it just kind of becomes a matter of stare at the game map for like 30 minutes until it occurs to you what his phrase references. Like, oh, it's this particular restaurant where there is a word that relates to what was in your hint.
Right.
Yeah, the bomb guy. The bomb guy feels to me, it reminds me of Die Hard 3. where Bruce Willis is kind of being run around town to defuse bombs.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an annoying side quest, but they make they've got that every now and then, and maybe it's weird because I love detective games, but I don't feel like the detective aspects of this have the depth of a Phoenix Wright. Like, it's not a full-on adventure game. Yeah.
So I was going to say, you do that mini game you're just talking about where you're looking over a crime scene and getting the 2 or 3 bullet points just so at one point you're like, okay, I need to show him this evidence, and it'll bring things up, and it's so obvious what you need to bring up every time. It's like, we need to show that Hamura was not here. Should I show him a pen, the camera evidence, or this book?
It's probably the camera evidence.
Oh, you're right. Okay, that's how it feels to me.
Yeah. My favorite part, actually, and I also have not gotten any of this wrong, is I like the interrogations, where it's all about asking the questions in the right order, and it gives you a little bonus every time you get.
Well, actually, it's not even get them in the right order. It's just don't ask the stupid question.
Oh, yeah, there's one really dumb question. There's get the 3 questions in the right order and avoid the one really dumb question that you shouldn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you a little SP bonus for everyone that you get right in order, and it gets a little bit higher scoring every time. And if you get all 3, it's all 3 correct. So I like that part of it. But again, it's very basic compared to I play a lot of adventure games, so it's not quite to the point of being an adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
It feels more like a traditional Yakuza game with a whole bunch of extra crap grafted on. So that's the investigation. And at the end of chapter 1, you prove that Hamura couldn't have possibly done it. He's acquitted, but you kind of warn him, hey, I know you're connected to this. I know that you're probably giving the orders to have these people murdered. And Hamura also plays it as if he's the one giving the orders. He later threatens you with having your eyes gouged out, which, pretty much isn't an admittance of guilt to me, that he's connected to this. So you tell him, I'm not going to stop investigating you. And he says, you better stop investigating me. And the second chapter, becomes all about trying to investigate how Hamura is connected to these murders. And in the process of this, you realize that there is some connection to your best friend, who is a fellow PI, Masaharu Kaito, who we've talked about a bit already. He's kind of a cool, gruff, bearded dude. Again, it reminds me of Jet from Bebop, who's a former Yakuza who got let out of the life by Matsugane after an incident where he was kind of minding his office, and $1 million yen were lifted from that office. A guy just breaks in a ski mask at gunpoint, says, I know you've got this money here.
Do you remember the robber's name?
I do not.
Red Nose. It's so stupid.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
well, that's what they call him. He's a hobo.
A hobo
called Red Nose. Yeah, he turns out to be a hobo. There's also another. Who's the kind of slimy guy who runs the underground arcade? Is that Higashi?
It's Higashi.
Okay, cool. So Higashi's also there. Higashi is kind of Hamura's underling at the start of the game. So you've got Hamura, and then Higashi is his right-hand man. But he's kind of the Smithers to Hamura's Burns, and a bit of a weakling. Doesn't like to kill. There is a flashback where Hamura tries to make him kill, and he basically has to pull the trigger for him. But yeah, Higashi is there, and Higashi is ready to make a move to protect the money. At which point Kaido then decides, no, I'm just going to give up the money and let it go. And as a result, Kaido is about to sacrifice his pinky as a way of showing kind of respect and humbling himself to try and stay in the life and not be cast out of the family. But then Hamura basically says, no, you're cast out of the family regardless. At which point Yagami argues, hey, if you're casting him out, if he's not a Yakuza anymore, he does not need to cut his finger off now. Loophole! So, Matsugane agrees. Again, kind of a good guy, Matsugane. Even if in the present he is powerless to really keep Hamura under control. And Kaido gets to leave with his life and with his pinky. And now he's working with you on stuff. But it turns out that kind of this thievery is connected, that this was a staged thievery, that Hamura actually hired some bums to do it for him because he wanted to oust Kaido. Because, Kaido is a good and honorable, he's a Kazuma-like guy. It's kind of interesting that they have basically the Kazuma equivalent in Kaito, but they make him the side character.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the same thing where, Kazuma is an honorable Yakuza who is kind of framed for something that he's not responsible for, and he has to leave the life, and is then pulled back into the life as part of kind of a series of events which is vaguely connected to his past. So he's kind of like Kaito that way. But yeah, it turns out that, Hamura was behind the incident, and we also behind the robbery to get Kaito out, and we also learn that Higashi is responsible for Red Nose's death, because Higashi did not realize that Hamura had hired Red Nose to do it, so he thought that he was just kind of investigating, generally doing Hamura a favor, getting the money back. And when he points out that when he fingers Red Nose for the crime, Hamura basically says, like, well, now I have to kill Red Nose to keep this under wraps. So really, you, Higashi, by identifying him, are responsible for his death. So Higashi beats himself up for that.
Yeah, and that's where that point you talked about, where Higashi wouldn't pull the trigger. So Hamura does, but he keeps Higashi's hand on the gun. So basically going, well, your hand's on the gun that just killed this dude.
Yeah.
So you're stuck.
But even though, he didn't really kill him, even though Hamura made him do it, he's ultimately responsible because, he should have just let it go. But he didn't. He had to prod, and once he had identified him, he had to die to keep everything quiet. So that's that, and you kind of figure that out. You search through the police archives, or I think Higashi actually searched through the police archives and found it out, and he just tells you. But yeah, Red Nose done did it, and then Red Nose was murdered. And then another murder happens. A man named Kurimoto. He's a Tojo clan member, and the thing that's important is that he physically resembles Hamura and was wearing clothes similar to Hamura. So kind of the big argument with this was like, hey, who is responsible for Kurimoto's killing? Was it the Kyorei clan as revenge, or was it somebody else? Was it somebody trying to kill Hamura? Because did they think that Kurimoto was Hamura and was kind of an unintentional victim? So as a result of that, Hamura goes into hiding, which is good for you because it means that you can kind of, keep investigating without having to worry about Hamura murdering you for investigating him, which is a serious threat at one point. Hamura tries to intimidate you, like, hey, if you keep looking into these eye gouging out murders, you're in real trouble. And while all of this is going on, you're doing kind of cases with and discussing it with your boss, Masamichi Shintani. Masamichi Shintani is the main lawyer at Genda Law Office where you work, and the guy who gets Hamura off. And he also gets suddenly murdered. He suffers multiple gunshot wounds, is stuffed into a closet, and you just kind of find him in your office. You open the closet, and he falls out. And you don't know where he was killed. You don't know who killed him. Was it Hamura, or was it somebody else? I mean, Hamura, of course, seems like the most likely option, but I could see there being a lot of other potential candidates who might blame Shintani for getting Hamura off that murder charge.
And the one thing with that murder that stood out to me was it was a little different because of the gunshot wounds. Because I think, if I remember right, the other three murders that were credited to the mole, or whatever they were calling that, the the secret murderer, there were no gunshot wounds. It was just the eyes were taken out. And this one, the eyes were taken out, but there were also gunshot wounds. So was it a copycat murder to kind of try to be hidden as part of this mole stuff, or what? So what do you think? Who do you think killed him?
Oh, gosh. Who killed Shintani?
Who killed Shintani? Was it the mole, or was it someone else?
So, my main theory of this game is that the mole is multiple people. So, I think the mole is multiple people connected to Hamura. Maybe Hamura himself at one point, though not at the third victim. The third victim was obviously somebody else. Now, whether Shintani was killed by the mole or one of the moles, at the moment I think yes. But there was just I'm sure there'll be some flashback, some explanation of a particular circumstance that forced him to be shot before his eyes were stabbed out, rather than just being stabbed. In other cases, maybe the mole had the drop on his victims. Who knows what exactly happened? I'm sure at some point there'll be a flashback where we see what happened to Shintani. That is this game's way. Oh, we also know that there's a real estate dispute between those two clans, which is also, by the way, a trope in the Yakuza series. There's multiple Yakuza games that hang on real estate. I wonder if the murders are about that. I wonder if the murders are about getting access to this land, or we don't really know. Okay, so we know that there's conflict between the Tojo clan and the Kyoto clan, but I think that this is something more personal. I think this is either...
So just not about money.
Well, I think it's probably like a personal vendetta wrapped in we can kill two birds with one stone and get control of this property, or push this clan out while we're doing it. Or it is just... I definitely think there's something personal behind it. I don't think it is purely a power grab just because of the MO. I think the stabbing the eyes out feels like there is a philosophical point being made. Man, if it's just Hamura and friends...
I don't think so.
That's what I'm kind of thinking, but for me, it would be disappointing.
For me, I'm trying to not say too much. Not that I've gotten big revelations as far as the story goes. I'm just trying to be careful because I am a couple chapters ahead, and there have been things that have happened there. I'm like, was that before or after? Have we met this character yet? So I'm trying not to say too much in case people are following along, and I don't want to spoil anything for Jens over here.
Well, we should talk about some characters that we haven't mentioned yet, like Ayabe. Well, I have mentioned Ayabe, just not by name yet, I think.
Yeah, Ayabe is he's a cop that's a rat, basically. He's your kind of informant guy. Have you met Kuriawa yet? The big cop?
The big cop.
He's one of the main cops. I'm trying to think of his exact title. Let me look.
I think I ran into him and the main prosecutor.
He's a detective under the Metropolitan Police Organized Crime Division, so he's just a detective.
I don't think I have yet.
I know he plays a little bit bigger role in the next couple of chapters that you'll play.
Oh, I think, you know what? I think he showed up briefly and kind of reprimanded. When you were hanging out with Ayabe, does he show up then?
Yes. Yeah, when you're in the bar.
Kind of rag on Ayabe a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did see him that one. I just haven't interacted with him much. Yeah, I think I've seen one scene with him.
It might just blow up in my face anyways, but I'll keep my theory inside because I'm halfway through what we're going to be doing on the next episode anyways, so hopefully it hasn't been resolved by the end of chapter 8. But I have a theory as far as who the mole is. I like your idea as far as it being multiple people, and that definitely makes sense. But I have an idea who it is. I just can't remember if they played a bigger role before the end of chapter 4 or not, so I'm going to hold on to it. The other character we didn't talk about was, so there's a group of vigilante robbers out
vigilante
there.
Thieves, thieves and hackers, right? They're
so they, for the most part, for the most part, they just go after the bad guys and take from them and basically take from the rich and stuff. But some of that group has gone beyond that and are now going after the poor as well. And like, I think the power of that has gotten to their head. But what was,
well, there's Crow, who's the bad one after,
right?
Who decides to kind of go rogue.
What's the good one that helps you? Is it, I can't remember his name.
Well,
that has
I don't know,
the weird mask.
Oh, well, they call him Jester.
Jester, that you're right.
He reminded me so much of Joker from Persona 5. So I was like, oh yeah, Joker, Jester. But he also, of course, is wearing, it's funny, it's like the V for Vendetta anonymous mask, but like Japanesified, Japanified, whatever the word is.
Yeah, he gets a little bit more in the 2 chapters I've played, and you start to get to know him a little bit more, but he kind of plays a small side role in those first 4 chapters. I'm curious if they do more with that as well. But yeah, I like I said, the gameplay's okay. The side stuff is Japanese as hell and pretty fun. But the story to me is really, really good. And especially the main storyline and trying to figure out where things go. Like, even though, yes, they do hit a lot of tropes, and especially, as from what Jens is saying, for those that have played the Yakuza series before, it's connecting a lot of the same dots. As somebody who has not played any of those games, I think the story is built really well, and I think a lot of that goes with because Yagami is such a great character.
I do enjoy it being more of a murder mystery this time. I think that's the thing that sets it apart from the rest of the series for sure. Even though there have been those kind of elements before, but having it be from the perspective of a detective. I've mentioned how much I personally am not enjoying the investigative gameplay that much. I don't know if you voiced much of an opinion about it.
It's okay. I have more problems with the following somebody.
Oh, the trailing, yeah.
The trailing stuff, like you said, gets old. The chase sequences are the exact same every time. They don't really add a lot to it. So it's those kind of things. And the combat to me is getting a little samey.
So we haven't talked about the combat much. I would like to do that. Just because this is our first episode, we like to talk about the mechanics.
I will say, as far as the combat goes, I'm not enjoying it as much. I think because we just got done playing Ghost of Tsushima, and it just doesn't...
It's so much better.
I don't think so. It feels really button mashy to me.
The timings are more flexible. I love all the special abilities that you unlock over time. It really feels like the combat system evolves over the course of the game. It starts out very simple and button mashy in the beginning, but Yakuza has always been big on contextual moves. So basically, here's a special move that you can do if you're holding this kind of object. Or here's a special move that you can do from a jumping stance. Or if you've been, thrown to the ground, you can do a little leg sweep and get him on the ground.
Real quick, you're talking about the contextual triggers and stuff. There was one thing that has only happened once in my I think I'm 25 hours in. One time it's happened where I was just near a street and cars were going by, and I grabbed a guy and it gave me the triangle prompt. So I hit that, and all of a sudden I push this guy into the car, and the car honks and drives off, and then all of a sudden comes back and grabs the dude and pulls him into the car, and they just drive off. I had to pause the game. I gut rolled so hard. So I will give them credit. They have a lot of, like you said, a lot of those where you may only see it once.
Well, because the generic random battles are so easy and just kind of filler encounters, I find myself experimenting. This is the beauty of Yakuza, is that Yakuza has an incredibly flexible combat system. It is a combat system where if you want to just mash your way through it, like if you want to just hammer, square and mash your way through, or I can learn the combos and become super lethal by kind of stun locking enemies in a long combo. Or I can do the crazy contextual moves where I'm using a lot of items and picking up dudes by their legs and waving them around the air and hitting other dudes with them, or tossing them around, smashing them into the wall, smashing them into cars, using the environment as much as possible, drop kicking a bicycle on their back, like all that stuff. The fact that you've got all these random encounters that basically aren't a challenge. They're just a thing to do. Really, I feel encourages me to just say, fuck it, I'm just going to do it, this really obscure way this time, or this time I'm using only punches, or this time I'm using only kicks, or I'm trying to do nothing but drop kicks, or I'm trying to do nothing but, pickups. And, I feel like you can just play it a lot of different ways, and by the time that you've unlocked everything, you really have a ton of tools. Right. In your 3 different stances, I mean, there's a lot to do.
All right, so I got to get out of this room. So let's wrap this up. We'll break down a lot more of this on the next episode. But Jens,
okay,
tell the people where they can reach you.
They can reach me at Aperture Silence. They can reach the podcast at large at chapter_select, which is the preferred way to reach us. And I promise we'll respond even there. You don't have to add us personally. And you can reach Randy at a Twitter handle I cannot retain off the top of my head, so Randy will have to tell you.
Yeah, mine is at Randy Isbell. Again, I don't tweet a ton. Right now, it's more retweeting and tweeting at Fall Guys. Because I will say, as much as I love the Fall Guys game, the guy that's running the Fall Guys Twitter is killing it. The things he does is so funny on there, and it's great. But we will be back in 2 weeks' time to talk about chapters 5 through 8.
Excellent.
So again, if you're behind, you have 2 weeks to catch up with us and discuss it with us. If you played it all before, we're going to break it all down. We'll definitely get way more into the story. Some of the side quests that I have not gotten to, Jens and I can finally discuss. And it will mostly be about the story kind of stuff, as we've really deep dived into a lot of the combat and side stuff. If something else pops up and we want to talk about it, we'll talk about it too, because there's a lot to talk about in this game.
Yeah, I want to get back to, maybe once you're deeper into it, and once we finish the game, I need to get your wrap up on the combat stuff, because I feel this is a lot better than Tsushima, and I'm surprised.
Honestly, like I said, most of my unlocking has gone to the case stuff.
Okay.
And so I need to do more as far as the moves and that kind of stuff. But most of my unlocking right now has gone towards what turned out to be unnecessary crap. Because I really thought, when going into this game, that it's a murder mystery, so I need more time to do this. I thought lockpicking a door was going to happen more than twice so far in this game. It never happens.
3 times for me.
and I have that thing maxed out. I don't need it maxed out, apparently, because it never happens.
There's some side quests where you have to lockpick under time pressure.
Oh, okay. So I have a lot of that stuff unlocked, but I'll get more into the combat, because again, I thought the combat at first was just going to be the side thing and everything was going to be the murder mystery, but I have been wrong so far.
That is how they pitched it.
The story's been really good.
They pitched it they pitched it that way, but yeah, it is. Yeah. It's very much a Yakuza game in the traditional sense, but without having to really know that much of the story so far. So I think as an entry point, it's great. I am wondering, from a similar standpoint, since it is also kind of its own story, whether or not you want to add Like a Dragon to our podcast schedule, but that's also something we can discuss later. I don't know if you're up for a Yakuza RPG, a turn-based Yakuza RPG.
We will see, especially if they're this long. I was talking to Jens before that with college getting going, is like, we're going to have to pick some shorter games. I actually am absolutely falling in love with this now that we've done it twice, of breaking a game down into different parts, because it worked with Ghost of Tsushima pretty well. I think it's going to work better with Judgment, about how our mood changes along the way, and how different things feel. Like you said, with the combat, it could completely change by part 2 or 3. So I love that. Yep. And maybe we can do that with other parts and spread them out more. But
I promise I'll let you pick the game at some point.
It's okay. So far, I wanted to play Ghost of Tsushima, so that was great. Judgment has been a pleasant surprise, and I'm very much enjoying it. So
I'm glad.
So far, you haven't disappointed me yet. It's not like Earthbound, where Wes is like, this is going to be the greatest Super Nintendo game you've ever played, and it was good. It was average and fine. Or when Robert Taylor told me, you need to play Conquer, it was better than Banjo-Kazooie, and it's garbage. So at me for that if you liked Earthbound or or conquers bad for a day.
If you can ever dig it out, I want us to do binary domain. And that'll be the one where I'll take a risk that you might hate it, but I really want us to play it.
All right. Okay. So for Jens, I'm Randy. This has been part 1 of Judgment, and we will be back in 2 weeks' time for chapter 5 through 8 of Judgment. Jens, thanks, man.
Thanks, Randy.
All right. You guys have a good one.